Leafs fans are absolutely livid at this as it somehow keeps getting worse as following yet another brutal loss. Things have taken a very ugly turn for this Toronto Maple Leafs team, and fingers are now starting to get pointed. We're going to break down exactly what's happening, but also discuss some wild comments, including a comment from John Tavares that is very intriguing. But not only that, we have a ton of other things to go over on this episode, including some updates. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you guys again for your continued support over here. Darius, things have gotten bad, and you had a post-game live stream yesterday. Brutal loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, and there's been a lot of brutal losses across the season so far for the Leafs. But things are starting to get pretty ugly here. Fingers are starting to get pointed. Fans are pointing fingers at multiple people. But I want to start, and we'll just talk about the problem that they have, because the Leafs have a massive problem here. And we've been talking about trades this season. We've been talking about some other things as well. They need to figure out the players they have, like internal problems first. And let's start with this. No NHL team has scored more goals than the Leafs, and only one NHL team has allowed more goals than the Leafs. And this is a crazy stat to even think of, because think back to where we were in the offseason. The defense was one of the only stabilizing factors of this team. There were moving parts in the offense, the bottom six. And now the defense under Derek Lalonde has turned into one of the worst in the NHL. You have John Tavares calling out the team. You have Berube calling out the defense. I want to get your thoughts on this, and we'll dive into the quotes in a minute.
Yeah, I want to get into the quotes because I think they tell a lot of the story about this season thus far. And I think Berube had a haunting quote, honestly, last night that we'll get into for sure. But this is the first time this season that the coaching staff has been brought up. It's been the personnel. What has the story been the whole time since last season, since Game 7 last year? It's been the Leafs need to go out and trade for a winger, right? They need more scoring. They're going to be lacking scoring. No team has scored more than this team this year. They're putting up goals. They're scoring enough goals to win games. Anytime you score 5 goals in a game, you should win that game, and they're not. So the problem is the defense. The problem is, to a degree, the goaltending some nights. Obviously, Stolarz, you'd like to have at least one save on the first 2 shots against the Bruins the other night. But the problem has been the defense, but just the defensive structure. And it's not just the 6 guys on defense. It's the entire team. It's the whole unit. They're not playing like a cohesive unit. And there's a couple times last night where I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's almost puzzling to see some of these guys skating around like they've never played before, like they're completely confused. So maybe it does boil down to defensive structure, and that there's a new coach, and the fact that this new coach was leading a Detroit Red Wings team that was abysmal in that same category. So of course we touched on that when he was first hired, but I thought it was a good hire in terms of this is a guy who's won a Stanley Cup and has won it recently. So clearly there's something there. And of course he had the personnel to do it that he didn't have in Detroit, but the Leafs, I thought, had that personnel. The only thing that hasn't changed about this team besides the goaltending, which it kind of did because Wall hasn't been playing, has been the defense. It's the same guys. And beyond the same 6 guys in the lineup every night, your 7th defenseman is the same. And the next guy that gets called up is the same. They were here last year, so it's puzzling, right? It doesn't make sense right now. Something has to give, and it is the defense. They are scoring more goals. Doesn't mean they can't go out and make a trade for a winger, right? We've been talking about that. But they're scoring enough goals to win games.
Yeah, and you have Austin Matthews, and Lalonde we'll dive into again in a minute here, but Matthews coming out and saying it's just kind of been the same stuff, details and execution. I didn't think we won enough puck battles, all these different things, and I don't even think that's the issue. It's not necessarily the puck battles, which are an issue. It's what was highlighted here by Craig Berube, and starting with John Tavares. Our game, just for whatever reason, becomes really immature. We don't manage the game very well, and when John Tavares has to... When you're seeing quotes get posted on Twitter and around the social media platforms about John Tavares, you're probably in pretty rough shape, because he's not one to speak. He's obviously very, he's candid, but he's also very careful with the words he says. And then Craig Berube, you can see there with his his angry face on the left. Pretty much this season is we don't value the defensive side of the puck enough. Now, whether that's calling out the players, which I think was his intent with it, calling out Lalonde, calling out the other coaching staff, same with John Tavares here. Things have gotten really bad really quickly, and these were 2 really inexcusable losses. We spoke about before the games about how they need to win both, ideally, probably one. You go up yesterday at 4-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes, and Berube was absolutely livid, and they still find a way to lose. You go through those comments from the players. Even William Nylander saying we've been playing good and bad at certain points. We got to sharpen those things up, and I think we'll be good. It is an absolute mess right now, but it all goes back to those comments by Berube, those comments by Tavares, and ultimately the defense has been really bad, and that's something that needs to be fixed. They're like among the worst in the NHL, and you don't want them to waste seasons where we're seeing historic levels of production from our top 6.
Yeah, and William Nylander specifically is going to score over 50 goals if he continues this way. He's going to have an unbelievable season. He's off to a great start. Even John Tavares too. Like you're wasting this offensive output losing games in regulation like that. And you just brought it up. They were up 4-2 last night. You have to clamp that game down. You have to win that game if you're up 4-2, especially against a team like Carolina that has been really good. They're first in the Metro now when you wake up this morning, right? So you have to find a way to win those games. And when you look at Berube's quote, I don't know if he's necessarily calling out the coaching staff, but I think he's saying we do not value the defensive side of the puck. We need to lock in here. Like we're putting up a ton of points. We're scoring 5-on-5. The power play until this weekend had struggled up until this weekend, right? Like the whole time they weren't drawing enough penalties, all of those things, but they aren't locking in enough defensively as a unit. There was a couple times even last night where I was watching and I'm like, the defense is giving these guys way too much space. And I think that maybe it doesn't boil down to just that, but that's another aspect of things where you're giving them way too much time and space, whereas other teams take away that time and space, and the Leafs are fighting for it, still scoring through those things, which is impressive. But the opposite in terms of what the Leafs defense gives other teams. And again, it's not just the two guys back there, it's the five-man unit. And they need to lock that in. Maybe it's the structure. Maybe it is. And a lot of people are saying, you got to stop dumping the puck in, right? I've seen a lot of that out there on Twitter. This team is scoring goals, guys. Like, I know you can say that they're slow, all of those things. That style, at least offensively, they're scoring goals enough to win games. It's the defensive side of the puck and giving pucks away, not, the neutral zone coverage, letting guys, especially the forwards, just, there's so many 3-on-2s going the other way. I don't know if it's the whole dump and chase thing. Oh, they're playing too much like the Blues, stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe there is something to that. But to me, they're still scoring goals, and they're not able to keep the puck out of the net so far this year.
Yeah, you can see here how the Leafs went from studs on defense last season under Lane Lambert to whatever the system Derek Lalonde is building is bewildering. You look at here the last 5 games and their losses. Their offense is among the best in the NHL, especially on 5-on-5. Of course, the power play leaves a lot to be desired. They haven't had a game in their losses with less than 5 goals, which is supposed to be last year the goaltending was elite, the defense was pretty good, right? And finally stable, pretty dang good for the first time. Not the case anymore, and a lot of that can be pointed to Chris Tanev, and Darren Dreger talks about, the impact he has, and he says, as much as I love Chris Tanev's game and how he's played since breaking into the league, he was sagging at times for 2 series of injuries. That's a significant loss because his approach to the game is what Toronto needs more of, both up front and on the back end. I don't know if I fully agree with this necessarily, but again, to each to his own here. Chris Tanev, they need him right now. He wasn't playing great when he was healthy, but at the same time, this is somebody who knows the game. They know how good he has to be, but it just makes things interesting now. You could say it's a systems issue. You could say it's a personnel issue. You'd be hard pressed to say it is a personnel issue with how good they were last year, but there is something I want to bring up before I wrap up here. They are deploying Philip Myers, who isn't an NHL defenseman, and they're deploying Simon Benoit, who hasn't been playing like an NHL defenseman. A change has to be made at this point, whether that's William Villeneuve, whether that's Henry Thrun. There's a reason you acquire these guys. You didn't trade for them or sign them for no reason. Change something. You have nothing to lose at this point. As you're starting to lose ground very quickly in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point. They have a lot of the same guy in the lineup, especially towards the bottom of the lineup on the defense core. So maybe it's scratching Benoit. I think, maybe give a look to William Villeneuve. Just give a look to him. He's an offensive defenseman. Just see what happens, right? Like maybe give him a couple games and just see what happens, because I think they have a lot of just this. I understand the trust thing, but they have a lot of the same guy out there. And a lot of people have also been saying, the Darren Dreger thing, and people have been talking about how they're missing Tanev, which is true. They're giving up a lot of shots without Tanev, but I don't think Tanev blocks 20 shots a game, right? Like, yes, that is a factor, but I think the biggest thing is getting the puck out of the zone, which Tanev does a really good job of. He's an underrated puck mover. So, transporting that puck out of the zone, because so many times this weekend specifically, you have a very easy opportunity to get the puck out of your zone, and you're not. It stays there. They get 1 chance, 2 chance, it's in the back of your net. And that happened multiple times this weekend, and it's happened multiple times this season. So they need to clean that up. And the good news is I think a lot of these things can actually be cleaned up, right? Which is the good news moving forward, but they have to do that. So until I see that, I will be a little bit worried. And right before we wrap up here, Dom Lucian, who does, a lot of advanced analytics work, this is the first season since 2016-17 where he has the Leafs at a less than 50% chance of making the playoffs in November. It is still early, but that's the first time in almost 10 years that his model's saying that. So a lot of people are starting to panic, but in my eyes, these are things that they can clean up, but they got to get to it. I know it's early season. A lot of these guys think that, the skill will just shine through. They're doing a lot of really good things on the offensive side of the puck. but defense is where you win championships.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are. And there's going to be a lot of talk about trading for guys like Nick Schmaltz, trading for top 6 players. None of it matters if you're giving up 5-6 goals a game. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. See you guys later.